It's only fair to say hi after you can hear me.
Hello.
Oh. Greetings in Santa Fe. Oh,
Uh,
I didn't hear you. Wait,
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay.
Nice.
Nice.
Okay. So do you say Santa Fe or do you say El Dorado?
I say Santa Fe.
Santa Fe. Okay.
It has a little more.
A little more shishi to it.
Yeah. Our clout.
Cloud. Yeah, because you don't have enough clout already.
my my first thing I want to say to you is I love that chair that you're sitting in.
Thank you. I love this chair too.
I've
It's
been watching your videos and on Facebook, and I don't want to know about that chair.
oh well. Bought this chair a few years ago. I live very close to a restoration hardware outlet store.
Oh.
So it's funny, I call restoration hardware IKEA for rich people.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
I'm sorry, but because there is this outlet store nearby, there are just so many of us that go there, and you get it for a great price, and I don't know, it kind of fits, and the whole kind of linen thing is great. And I would not have picked this chair, but
Oh, really?
one of my best friends she's a brilliant designer and stylist, and she saw it and just said, "Oh, you have to get that chair." And I thought, okay. And I at the time I thought, oh, it'll be my meditation chair, because it has this sort of ceiling to it, right? Kind of
Oh.
keep your head protected and all of that. And then we got it here, and it was practically too big for the room.
Oh.
I mean, it struggles to fit in this room, and I just said, too bad. It just We make it work, and I love it. And anyone who sits in it feels like they're in the throne. And um, yeah, it has
There you
a lot
go.
of good things working for it. It's very
Yeah, for
cozy.
me, when I see you, it's like almost like a studio right there, like a recording studio.
Right. Well,
That's
here
what it reminds me.
I could make it a little tighter, right? And then it'd be like this. Ooh.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny. I'm always aware of where the pointy thing is in the back of my head, so I never really want that to happen. Well, here, I'm going to make the studio cool for you. I'm going to go like this with my chair.
Okay, cool.
This is what I do. I rearrange furniture 24/7. All right.
Yes, I love that. I
There.
love that.
Now we're like symmetrical. There. Oh, yeah. Oh, this must be
See?
my new studio.
See?
Thanks, Mary.
And both of our sons are in video editing. And so that's what I think of when I see you in that chair. It's like your own perfect little studio.
Well, and that's the other thing about it is the sound is so much nicer here than, say, up at my desk, where surfaces are a little more hard and bouncy, that sort of thing. Yeah, it is funny that both of our sons are into video, and neither of us, we weren't really, we had no intention of doing this. And yet here we are.
And I'm so glad that you started this. I thought about Anne Frank, the Diary of Anne Frank, and how she, wrote about her experience. And now we're in a whole new era. And to have it on video, I think is a beautiful idea. And I've been watching since you started what you're saying. And, when you read, you were invited to write in what your feelings were. And that was just so beautiful.
Well, that's funny. So that means you and my mom are the two people that watch these.
No, I think other people are watching them.
Yeah, it's funny because I am a writer. I think of myself as a writer. I tend to keep my thoughts to myself, and I tend to keep all of it in. And I've been really aware that I needed to do a little more sort of throat chakra opening type work for a while. I knew it was coming. I just didn't know the form. And, the perfectionist in me wanted it to be perfect, whatever that was going to be. And then this thing hit, and I didn't have time for that. I didn't have time to be a perfectionist. I didn't have time to even write and be collected that way. And yeah, so it feels like a time of just jump and don't worry about it. Your wings are going to come out on the way down or up or wherever we're going. I think we're going up. I
Well,
think it is like jumping off a cliff.
I think so too. And I want you to know that even as you're saying it, you want things to be perfect, but I thought we follow each other on social media. And I've noticed in your Facebook posts to other people that you've been speaking out, whether it's a disagree or you don't have the same perspective, that you have been speaking into it. And I think that's a beautiful invitation for all of us, rather than just like or agree with people. But it's not that you are negating, but you're just adding your perspective, and from a place of respect and a place of, but I want my voice to be heard. That's what I'm hearing in what you write, and it invites me to do the same. So thank you.
Oh, well, good. Thank you. I mean, that's a high compliment. And it took me a long time. I mean, it took me a long time to own my opinionated opinions and be okay with that. Um, agree, disagree. How can you disagree and be nice? um, that's why I think it's so hilarious that my mom actually knew that my first conversation was going to be with my ex-husband. I guess she knew because
That's
of
so cool.
the way I said it or something, but we literally had just had this fight about money, or it's always about money with him. If we have it, because we actually get along pretty well in every department except the money department. And it just spiraled out of control. And I was like, boom, unfriend. Like, I cannot be your friend. I cannot talk to you anymore. But for the sake of our son, I'll keep, you could text me once in a while. And then this came, and I actually, I was concerned about him, and he's in a pretty vulnerable place, personally, physically, in Moscow. Plus, I was super interested in his perspective as a banker. Like, if you think 3 steps ahead to the crisis of the, financial world ending, um, I can still respect him as a smart person and be mad at him whenever we have to talk about our personal stuff. And how can I get over that and get to the next, it's funny, I have a little list of conversations I want to have with people, and
Yeah.
some of them are very hard conversations. But they feel like, isn't that funny? You made me just think of this. Um, the conversations you want to have with a person before they die, so that you're at
Yes.
peace and they're at peace and everything like
Yeah.
that. It's those conversations. Like, I just want to clear everything so that, so I don't feel the block anymore. So I don't feel the block of that thing, that conversation held down in my body, because I didn't say what I wanted to say.
Yeah, and I think that this is a time when those kind of conversations are, maybe they've been in the background and now they're just coming to surface now. And so it's like, okay, so we may not have the time that we thought we had with this person. And so it just is some conversations like you're talking about. And I think what you're also pointing out is that there could be areas of that are glitches or areas that are difficult to speak into, but then there are other areas that there's no issue. It's like what you're saying, the financial one is the loaded one, but now's the time. It's like, okay, so we have to speak, let's speak into that. We don't have to, but the invitation is to speak into it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love that. I love that. I don't know. I think this is a really interesting time. I see so much shift and change in everyone so fast. And then the people who were made for this, I mean, we're all made for this, but there are some people that are really like, okay, I can handle this and I can hold a bunch of you too. I can hold some space for, hundreds, thousands, whatever it is of you as well. And I'm not going to spin out. Um, and
Yeah,
that's,
that need for anchoring and grounding right now, and it's bigger. The conversation is bigger than just me and what I want or what I'm thinking about. It's like all of a sudden it's a global perspective. And what's my role in that? Is it just in my own household or my family of origin, or is it bigger than that? And I think for me it's like it's bigger than that. It's more than just kind of business as usual is the way I have been moving forward in life.
yeah. Well, I've noticed it's different things for different people. I mean, we are all still dealing individually as well as
Yeah.
collectively. So, you do have the reality of your household and how far away the groceries are, and what kind of food you have access to. What's your shelter situation? What's your family situation? I'm feeling for my friends in New York. It's, I mean, kind of crazy there right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I had a call with a guy yesterday about my website, and he's a call center person. So he was helping me with some website stuff. He's based in the Philippines.
Oh,
And at
wow.
the end of the call, after he sorted me out, and I said, by the way, just stop. You've already told me too much information. I can't process anymore today. I said, how are you? And how is it in the Philippines? And where are you? And he said, oh, I'm near Manila. And we just had a nice little conversation that we never would have had in any other circumstance. And then he told me, they're not selling alcohol anywhere in the Philippines now.
Oh,
You
wow.
can't buy alcohol in the Philippines. Um,
Wow.
Partly because people, I guess, weren't taking it seriously and were still gathering. So it's partly to take away the gathering aspect, but it goes beyond that. Our liquor store is still open here, but his isn't. He said, I said, so can I send you a bottle of anything? And he said, no, I would get arrested if
Oh, wow.
I received it. And I just thought, okay, wow, that's a whole, like, who knew? They're having a completely different experience there. And what would that do in America if everyone had to stop drinking? And I realize, a lot of people don't, but a lot more people drink here than, say, in the Middle East or now in the Philippines. What does that mean?
It's an interesting topic because my husband and I were on our way, Ken and I were on our way to the grocery store, which we do once a week or once every 2 weeks. And I noticed, in light of most stores being closed, the liquor store was open. And I personally have not had any alcohol in 20 years. So just a choice, a personal choice.
Mhm.
Not that I had a problem with alcohol, I just chose not to drink anymore. And so I was thinking about that and how now there are those individuals that are hoarding liquor just like they're hoarding toilet paper. And I was just exploring that internally. If that's your coping mechanism during this kind of time, it's certainly not something I'm doing. I'm choosing a different way, but we all have our different ways of coping. But that Philippines not being able to drink is an interesting perspective on all of this. Because if we grab for a drink rather than being able to reflect inward, and maybe it's a both and, it definitely is a both and, but um, I don't know that avenue, and haven't for many years.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that it's being forced from above.
Yeah.
That if you break this rule, you can be arrested. Um, so it's not a choice, um, which is interesting. Yeah.
Well, and Ken, my husband's son-in-law, is a pilot for United,
Hmm.
and he is an international pilot. And he
Hmm.
was just recently flying an empty plane to Australia to pick up people there. And he said when he got to Australia, there were guards, police in the airport, and they'll also in the hotel, so that those who were coming into Australia were quarantined and couldn't leave the hotel. So, what we're talking about, it's those kinds of lockdown experiences that are happening, and that we haven't gotten to that point in the US yet, but forcing these things upon us rather than feeling like we have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole different world with those kinds of
I
choices,
think
or not choices.
Americans don't listen very well to that sort of rule of law. We don't like to be told what to do. We're very bad children here. So how are you feeling? And are you doing yoga every day? I'm guessing.
Yeah, I'm doing yoga every day. And it's interesting, right before we started this conversation, I had just taught my first online course I teach out here in El Dorado in the community center. And of course, we haven't been able to have classes for 2 to 3 weeks. And so one of the students reached out and said, what about Zoom? And also the Yoga Alliance is encouraging Zoom classes. So today was my first online Zoom class. And then I watched it to see, what it was like. And the funny thing is that I dye my hair, and my hair is now beginning to have roots. And so when I would be in certain postures facing the camera, I could just see this whole section of roots, and it was like, oh dear. But that's one of the realities, of us not being able to get haircuts unless somebody in the family cuts hair. And but anyway, it was a beautiful experience. And the Yoga Alliance, when they did a webinar on teaching, people how to use Zoom if they haven't, they encouraged a time of connection after the class. So it's a Zoom class. And then after the class is over, then we move from, everyone muted to opening up the lines and having people be able to talk to one another. So this is the community where normally I would have 14 to 16 people in a class, but today I had 28 people so it was just an open invitation, and so many more people in the larger community of yoga did come on. And then afterwards, it was kind of like a free for all. Everybody's hey, and then I watched it. So it was beautiful. It's really beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So are you going to set up a regular class, or?
So I normally teach 2 days a week. So I will continue Wednesdays and Thursday, and 9 to 10:15. And then from 10:15 to 10:30, have the mic open. And, I asked, how's everybody doing? And then we'll get this refined a little more, because today was the first class. But my intention in teaching the class was, number one, familiarize yourself with this platform.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're out here, we're an aging population. And so there were, I think, 10 people that I did a practice session or a tutorial the day before. And then today we had 28 on the call. And so it's something that I will continue to do. And I've been noticing what I am exploring that's new, that I haven't done before, that's getting me out of my my comfort zone. And so yesterday I did some editing of videos for Dr. Sue. And then I also taught a tutorial on Zoom. So those are new things for me. And then today it was actually teaching an online Zoom course, And anyway, that's what's happening here.
Wow. So in a funny way, your community is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, I know, because I've been there. I've stayed with you. I guess I have to. We haven't even introduced each other yet, or I haven't introduced you to everyone. But I've stayed in your house. You're in your office right now, right? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And yeah, it's you and Ken, and it's quiet, and you're really separated almost isolated. It's very similar to how I live here. Probably you have even fewer people around you and houses around you. And now you're more connected than ever to.
Well, and I think that, up until now, it's been Zoom. I've used Zoom over the last year, 2 years in meetings,
Mhm.
but never attending meetings or coursework, but never using it to teach. I've used it with clients individually, but
Right.
yeah.
Isn't that great? It's like it's bringing out the teacher, it's bringing out the teachers everywhere. Period. It's not just the teacher in everyone, but the yeah, teachers that were never seen before, or that we were all hiding in our little in our little whatever. um, and now we're coming out and yeah, speaking up and sharing what we have, and it's so easy, and I love that.
Yeah, I love that in the fact that there's aspects of ourselves that we have been comfortable in leading with.
Mm,
Like you as a photographer, or me as I'm a psychotherapist by training,
mhm.
someone who listens to others. And so there's aspects that have been kind of like on my second string that I have not used as much that are being invited into the forefront, which I think is beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was going to mention that. I was going to mention that. So I can't actually remember how we first met. I mean, it was a Dr. Sue something. Was it, you weren't in India.
No, I didn't go to, it's probably Sedona.
Sedona. No, 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 but it was before Sedona. It must have been the book launch.
Okay.
It must have been the book launch because we had already agreed that I was going to photograph you sometime after Sedona. So Sedona
Yeah.
was the first time that we said hello face to face, or maybe something like that.
Yeah.
But I was sort of aware of you in the community because that's what happens. You see the same people over and over at her events. Um, so, so the book, and was the book launch only a year ago?
Yeah. Yes, it was.
Um, so yes, so we are part of Dr. Sue's community, and it's funny, she comes up in almost every conversation I have,
Oh,
um,
no.
in some
Neat.
way, shape, or form. And not even people who aren't in her community, maybe they have the book or they know how much I love her and am always sharing, the book, the energy codes, whatever. And it's a little bit about photography too. Like I noticed after Sedona, and you were part of a bigger journey I was taking where I was photographing people all over the Southwest. And I just felt like I was on fire during that month or whatever it was. I mean, it was so much fun, right? I mean, you had fun, I had fun. I would just go place to place, and almost all of the people I was photographing at the time were from that community. And I find that almost easier than other people I photograph. And even though I know you less personally, because of the different level of awareness you have about energy, about connection, about yoga, about your bodies, like all of that, it makes the connection part easier for me. So it makes it easier for me to connect with a total stranger, and then still it, like, the magic happens. Um, yeah.
Tanya, it was a photograph that you took that really was like the introduction. There was one particular photograph that you took in India of Dr. Sue and Dr. Elisa, that was so beautiful. And so I heard of you through that photograph.
Oh, that's
Dr. Elisa said, you need to meet Tanya
so
because
great.
she's able to see the beauty in everyone and photograph that. And so that's how I first knew of you, and then, met you personally at the
That's
book launch. But
is that the photo with the Ganges behind them?
yes, Yeah,
Yes.
it's beautiful.
That was the day I meant to put her in the Ganges. I did that with Tanya Tengen instead, because we were sort of in a hurry. But yeah, that was an extraordinary journey with her. And it was because of Geraldine that I met her in the first place.
No, I didn't.
Oh, this is a good story.
Okay,
All right,
tell.
I'll tell you how. Okay, where does the story start? I had this huge breakup in my life that was super traumatic. So I decided to take myself to an event in Arizona, Phoenix, I think, called Celebrate Your Life.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it was a great event. This was 2015. I think it happened just after my birthday. So it was sort of like my birthday present to myself. I flew out there, and because it was a big trip, it was far. So I signed up for a workshop before, and then I went to the event, which is about 5 days, and you see 3 different speakers a day. It's like a who's who of Hay House authors. And then you can also tack another workshop on the other end if you want to. So I go to the full day workshop, and mind you, I go alone. I don't know a soul there. I don't even know if I know anybody who would go. Nothing. So I go.
Good for you.
I do crazy sometimes. And so the first event was a Denise Lynn workshop. I'm walking around. Denise had us close our eyes and walk around the room and just bump into people and then hug them. It was a great exercise. I forget the point of it, but that's the part I remember. And then I went to lunch by myself, and I got my little food and didn't know where to sit. And all of a sudden, this woman screams at me and says, "Hey, girl with the fuzzy vest, come sit with me." Like, what? She said, "I hugged you. Come sit with me." That was Geraldine.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, and that was Geraldine. And we started talking, and I got her story right off the bat. And we just almost didn't go back to the workshop. We were just like this, chattering the whole time. And I told her that I had just started this idea of doing a book about prophets among us. And it was about ordinary people delivering extraordinary messages. And the message that Malala gave me when I finally got the courage to tell her I was doing the book, she said, "Well, you know who should be on the last page?" Because I told her I wanted to put her on the first page. And she said, "You should be on the last page." And I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And in that moment, it all clicked for me. And I was like, of course, I get it. Now I understand the project. The project is we are all prophets in different phases of uncovering. It's not the people preaching. It's not the people on stages. It's everybody. Different phases. Some of us are in hiding. Some of us aren't. Some of us don't even know that we have this gift inside of us. Anyway, so Geraldine and I palled around the event for days together, and she kept talking about Dr. Sue, and she told me about her story with Dylan, her son who passed, and and I have only one son, and in fact, our sons were about the same age. So here is a mother whose only child has passed, and I look at her and I say, "How are you smiling? How are you laughing? How are you even alive?" That's what I need to know, because no way. I just didn't think I ever could. And she said, "Dr. Sue Morter saved my life." And I said, "Well, then I need to meet this person. That's clear." And she wasn't even on my schedule I didn't know her, so I didn't pick her as one of my people to go listen to. And then one day I was supposed to be I think it was a Michael Beckwith meeting. And I got there late because of somebody I was talking to at lunch. And I sat in the back of the room, and there was singing going on. And I felt really uncomfortable. And I would never do this. I am not even the kind of person who would leave a movie theater if I hated the movie. I would sit there and watch it. I don't know if it's the polite in me or the what, but I left Michael Beckwith, and I happened to know that Sue was speaking at the same time. So I walked into her room. So now I'm late for a second thing and I don't even know what's going on in the conversation. And she's just interesting and I'm just listening. And then we get to the part where we're doing a meditation and she does what she always does. And I'm sitting in the back of the room and my eyes are closed and she's talking about circuits firing and whatever in my brain, like lights flashing off and on. And I opened my eyes because lights were flashing on and off in my brain. And I opened my eyes because I thought somebody was tricking us with the lights. And she wasn't. I mean, that was just her. Like she just took me to some other place. And that's it. I was completely intrigued. Geraldine introduced me to her personally later and said something about, oh, Tanya's doing this book. And she was like, oh, that's great. That's intriguing, whatever. Nothing happened. I'm going to say 6 months later. No, not even. Oh yeah, 6 months later. 6 months later, I was in Los Angeles doing some other photos for the book and hanging out with Geraldine. In fact, staying with Geraldine. And we met for dinner one night. And then the next morning, I just said, hey, Geraldine. She told me about her crystal bowls, the sound healing that she does. And she said, I'm thinking of selling these things. Or maybe she was selling them, but she didn't have any photographs to help her do that or to build the website or anything. And I said, let's just do some photos. We'll do them tomorrow. And she was like, oh God, I'm not ready and I can't and this and that, like made a million excuses why she couldn't do it. But you know what? Neither one of us had anything else going on. So we grabbed some clothes. I just picked some things from her closet that felt right. And this is how I do everything. It's just how it felt in the moment. I mean, you saw, like, I went into your closet and did the same thing. Like this necklace, that necklace, this shirt, that shirt, whatever. So I picked some of her clothes. We didn't even know where we were going to shoot. And then at the last minute, she said, maybe my mom's house. And then we got to her mom's house and I said, really? Were you hiding this from me? This place is beyond spectacular. Now she's on the cliffs of Palos Verdes overlooking the ocean. But most importantly, her mom had this chair that was, I think it's made out of steel. It's cut out of steel and it's a butterfly.
Oh.
And immediately I felt that connection between Geraldine and a butterfly and Madame Butterfly, because she was an opera singer.
Yeah.
And butterfly transformation and butterfly on the edge of the cliff, boom, all of it. So we just went nuts. I took a ton of pictures of her at the butterfly chair, at the tree, in front of her angel wings. I made videos. I mean, I never do videos for anyone. I was making really cool little, I'd start looking down on the bowl and pan up to her and she'd say things. And we improvised everything. We had the best time. We weren't thinking about outcomes at all because it was just the experience. And of course, and we took all of her bowls and laid them out on the stairs and ended up with this picture of, Geraldine with 20 bowls around her. And it was just beautiful and magical. She showed those pictures to Dr. Sue, and Dr. Sue said, oh, we should invite Tanya to Sedona or India. And I thought, well, I'd love to do everything, but I can't afford that. So if I have to choose, I'm picking India. So I didn't even know what the Sedona conversation was about. If I'd known, I would have gone sooner.
And
so
I've seen those photos, Geraldine, and they're
the first ones of Geraldine. Yeah, but
yeah.
That's how I work. I saw Geraldine before Geraldine saw Geraldine. Like I saw her doing that and making this new kind of music, and she still didn't even know what it was. And I was like, me neither. Doesn't matter. I totally see you doing it. And that's the beauty of it. It was just, and I know that Sue saw it immediately. Sue was just like, yeah, she got you. She totally got you, core
Essence,
Geraldine. Yeah. And
I feel like you did the same for me.
Well, good. That's always the hope. But it takes a certain person to get that, because some people aren't actually ready for it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they
Mm-hmm.
say they want pictures, they think they want pictures, but they're not actually ready to expose themselves. They're not ready to expose that essence. Um, and it's a little bit of a trust thing. It's a little bit of a vulnerability thing. But I have worked with people who they weren't really ready. Um, so the pictures are okay, but I look at them and they feel flat to me. Um, because it's for me, it's not really about the picture. It's like, do you feel the person coming through? Um,
Know that you had made a comment. I wrote down the notes from one of your little short Facebook about it's more about the inner beauty,
mhm.
and that the inner connection that you make with the person, and that even though you've done a lot of models and photo shoots in that way, that what you see is that radiance or inner essence, and that, like you say, maybe there isn't a resonance there yet between you and that the other person, but I certainly felt it when
Mm.
you were in our home, and we spent 2 days together just talking about jewelry, just getting that connection going. Before then, we went out to different sites, and you were able to see me as who I am rather than, and as I see myself, really.
Yeah.
But as, yeah, you opened me up to who I am more fully. Yeah.
Which I wouldn't even think was possible because you're such a pro in that world already. I mean, you do that for other people. You know, you bring other people into themselves and to more awareness of themselves, whether it's through yoga or I mean, as a therapist, you were doing that. Um, you do that for everyone in every way.
Tanya, you were saying that when you started these conversations that you didn't see, you're behind the camera, not on the camera. And
Mhm.
I think that's something for me as well. It's like I bring other people out as opposed to, seeing that in myself of my own radiance or radiating out. But now it's kind of like that mirroring perspective. You're mirroring parts of yourself now that you hit maybe were hidden. The same for me.
Interesting. Yes. Well, and so I'd be curious to know. Um, and I'll explain this as a photographer, and I want to know if there's an equivalent for you, because
Yeah, sure.
I used to say that I would only there are only about 5 people I can think of who I would let take my picture. And I don't mean let, because a lot of people could take my picture, but there are only maybe 5 people who I think can do it well. Um, and it's for a few reasons. Um, one of those people is my son. Um, one of those people is a good friend who is a photographer, but he's known me a very long time. And he loves that I'm so no bullshit about everything. And he's, when we first met, he thought I was one thing and I turned out not to be that thing, which is, I don't know what he thought. I was, like some fancy elitist, overeducated snob something.
Not you.
Yeah. Which, if you looked at my resume, you could come to that conclusion. Um, but and who are the others? Another is a dear friend who's like a sister. So we have always seen each other. It's about seeing the other person, but it's about seeing them energetically and feeling them at such a deep level that you can actually take a photograph. Because otherwise, people pick up a phone or a camera, and I find they get sort of stuck in the surface, or they get stuck in the technology or the equipment, and you have to have the energy to get through it. Which is the same as, you could have a conversation with someone. I don't know. You tell me if you have an equivalent to that, where you feel like there are just a few people who really get you.
Yeah, I think it has to do with a trust level. You know, it's that vulnerability, trust continuum. And so, you know, I wouldn't um, unburden myself, or I don't think the word's unburden, but I wouldn't share deeply who I am,
Mm.
you know, that with anybody and everybody. And there are people that I allow in. I think that's what you're talking about, allowing into to that place of deeper vulnerability. And that usually that takes time in relationships, but um, so that's kind of what I hear you saying. And I
Yeah.
don't know if I could count who those people are in my life, um, but I do feel like there's certain people that energetically I would not let in
Mm.
for, and it could be just an intuitive awareness. It may not be actually a thought process. It's just they're like I feel with you. I feel like I can let you in,
Hmm.
and I can trust you. And I felt that from the beginning that we met. But there are others that it takes time.
Yeah. Well, and
And it
I'm starting to like, first of all, maybe it's changing. I always felt like I could have let people in, but maybe I was talking to the wrong people, or they weren't interested, or it just didn't go. I sometimes I just say I'm a Scorpio. Like, how deep you want to go? I can just go there. And not everybody cares or wants to, or um, is that interested in dark and mystical things like I am. But Sydney can just go there. I mean, Sydney, my boyfriend, is so capable of. It's like, he's not a big guy, but he has this ability to hold other people that is so big. Um, and he says he doesn't do this with he can't feel everyone the way he feels me, but he feels me so sensitive. I walk in the door, and he's like, "What's wrong?"
mm,
And if I say nothing,
mm.
he's like, "No, no, what's wrong?" Like, I see it in your look, your walk, your the what you said. Um, so I love that. I love intuitive and energetic connection to people. Um, and I love that my circle of people is growing, that I can feel that with. And so many of those people I find are connected to Dr. Sue. Um, I know she's a gatherer. She's a gatherer of people. I love how she says that we found her for a reason. Like, we're all finding each other again for a reason. Um, and that's the beauty of the trips too, like traveling with her. For me, India was just spectacular. I didn't know anything about anything she taught. I just went to India.
Oh wow.
I didn't even know what Mula Bandha was. that's that's how nothing I knew. And yeah, and every time you go to a different place, you're sitting with a different person on the bus, and believe me, I was horrified that I was going to go on a group travel trip anywhere, because I don't do group travel. Can't stand it. Except that group travel, because every single person is such a beautiful person to meet. And there's so much rich, loving, supportive, and so many skills too. Gosh, people have like the most amazing range of healer skills and things like that.
Yeah, it's a collective that's coming together. It is an energetic. I don't want to use the word vibration, but an energetic resonance that the people that are coming into her work, like you say, they're very interesting. They're very accomplished, uh, curious. It's an interesting mix of individuals that are coming together. And like you say, there's when you sit down with someone and you just see them as their exterior, and then you begin to that inner conversation. There's just so much more. The depth is really obvious.
Yeah. How's Ken handling all this? And are you two doing sort of treatments for each other back and forth during the quarantine or whatever we want to call this?
So, my husband, Ken, and we've been married now 20 years, together 22 years. And he was a body worker, into holistic health, now much more into the art and woodworking. And he's very heart connected. So he's listening to the news more than I am. I mean, we don't watch news. We don't watch news on television, but he's, watching for broadcasts. So he's feeling a lot of sadness. He told me last night as we were falling asleep that he is feeling a great deal of sadness for India, for those individuals who don't have food, aren't able to eat. He's talking a lot about New York and what's happening there. I tend not to listen to that and am more into what I'm exploring personally right now. So I think he's feeling a lot more on the verge of tears at times. And I'm just not going there. I don't want to go there. It's not that it's like I don't want to stay there.
Right.
I can feel it, but I don't want to put my focus there. So, so we're having a different place, but in terms of, we went to Costa Rica with Dr. Sue for the Lifetime Alumni Retreat and did 7 days of long extended yoga and very deep conversations, and got back on the plane. And as soon as we landed in the US is when things started to, go into quarantine, et cetera. So we've been in our home for 3 weeks together, only going out to go to the grocery store. And there's that sense of connection and support for one another energetically, but the way we're processing it is different. And he has had an underlying sort of, he often gets pneumonia, not often, but he has over the course of his life. So, I've been doing the shopping more recently, just not for him to get exposure. I mean, when we go out to shop now, we're wearing gloves. We haven't worn, I'm going out. I haven't worn masks yet, but that whole issue of his underlying vulnerability is something to be concerned about. And the whole issue of age. Ken is in his 70s. I just turned 70. So that's something that we're sort of managing in relationship to, we're healthy, we're active, we walk every day and I'm doing yoga. I meditate every day. So we have our personal practices that we've continued to ground ourselves, to do that anchoring. But I think that he's in a little more vulnerable place than I feel right now.
And is he still, is he using the art as an outlet right now? Does that help? I mean, it sounds like you have more physical outlets to help you.
I don't think he has not been doing.
I feel like we do all need an outlet for this energy.
Yeah. I think his outlet has been going out into nature and walking. Where we live, it's very easy to go. I mean, we're up right out in nature. I'm looking outside my window right now, and it's just gorgeous sky and lots of natural setting. And so we're able to do that, and we're in that. And I said to Ken just the other day, I said, well, what if we were in New York or Italy or somewhere where you're just in a city where everybody's right there and all you see is concrete or another person's balcony? We are nestled in nature, and that's very comforting. When we wake up in the morning, the view that we have, you've been here, the view that we have is just spectacular, of the mountains, of the trees. That is a meditation in itself. So
yes.
Yeah,
breathtaking. I feel the same way. I don't know what I would do if I didn't have I just came just before we got on this call. I walked for 2 hours in the woods with my dogs.
Yeah.
And it's at the very end, I saw one guy with a big camera, obviously photographing birds. But that was it. That, it's me and the dogs and the trees. And Um, I see them. I see them different ways at different times. Sometimes I see them like little, not soldiers, but people, I guess. Um, yeah, it's and then I also noticed, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. It's spring out. You know, we have the forsythias coming out now. The magnolias are out. The A little bit of the cherry blossoms are starting, and uh, it's the same outer world with a completely different feeling to it, which it's so interesting to me because I have a lot of friends. Well, I have a bunch of friends who say life is yoga. You know, everything is yoga, and I'm like, everything is photography. I gotta put my own language on it. But this split that is I'm constantly feeling between the way a thing looks, the outer thing, and then the way it feels on the inside. And I love that. I love it when it aligns. I think it's interesting when it doesn't, you know, when it's a complete fabrication. I look at the amount of photography that goes out in the world to sell a thing, for instance, like commercial, and the level of false advertising, if you will. I mean, people are not going to put up with this anymore. Who's going to want that after this? Nobody.
Yeah, and I think that's part of this whole conversation of what's essential, what's not essential, what's fake or false, and then what's really underneath. You know, and I have a garden right outside my window, and I'm looking, and so I haven't cut back the growth that, you know, died during the winter months, but you can see underneath all this green coming through. There's honeysuckle that's right out here that's got dark on the ends, but then it's green coming up. And then I have hollyhocks that are starting to come up. And so for me, that's a real meditation on, you know, what's essential, what's not essential. And then even in these times of challenge, that underneath the ground, things are bursting forth, and not to forget, you know, that that core of who we are can be just beautiful and green, and to remember that this will pass. It may not be during this time, but that spring will come forward again, and to ground in that kind of depth of the natural cycles, that's important for me.
Do you think, so are you still, the new website that you built was for coaching, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So is that going to grow? Do you think that more and more people are going to want um, guidance and direction for new kinds of businesses that are coming out now? Because that's what I feel. I feel like people are going to start tapping into their individual creative, who knows what, and they're going to need guides like you. I mean, you've got it all going on, because you've got the physical, you've got the emotional, mental, you know, you've got a lot of excellent guidance tools.
You know, I think that integration, personal integration, you know, as a licensed psychotherapist for 20 something years, I was more focused on the mental body, you know, thinking things through, analyzing what needs to be changed, what's not working. And then now that I've become more in the last 5 years integrated in my physical body, embodying that energy, I'm much less focused on what's not working. That's why I went into coaching of what's working. I have a very deep spiritual practice, so that my integration of mind, body, and spirit for me is so important. And that I do think that as role models, we're going to be looking for those individuals that are integrated. You know, I think about wise elders. It's not about what we say, but how well we're integrated into who we are as human beings. And for myself, it's like I don't feel out of balance as I did before, just more mental person, mental body. I just feel like this integration of mind, body, spirit, and walking that path of integration is going to be more and more important. And who do you trust? You know, that was our conversation earlier.
Yeah. Well, and I don't mind saying this because, A, he wasn't your patient, and B, he ended up not needing to talk to anyone. But, when I was really worried about my son and his feeling depression and anxiety and things that he was going through, you're the first person I thought of
Oh, thank you.
because of
Yeah.
that, because you have, the background of psychotherapy, which for me feels like it's not the way. For me, that's not the way forward. But great background and great training. And then because you have yoga, because he does yoga, so he understands that language. Because you have the energy and the energy awareness and the practice, your own spiritual practice, plus everything from Dr. Sue. And I know that my son really enjoyed her book as well, and got a lot out of it from the minute he read it. So I don't know, like that's a high level of trust when you think, okay, my son is in trouble, like really, I'm worried. Who do you call? You call
Oh, thank you,
great.
Tanya. Thank
And
you.
you were amazing, and I was so grateful that I could just call you and say, would this be right for him? Um, and then it's funny, it was another person it was Chrissy. It was Chrissy from Dr. Sue from Germany. And she said to me one day, is there any chance he's an empath? And then all of a sudden everything made sense to me. And I was like, oh, of course he is. Of course he's feeling so much more than even I can feel from, my surroundings and people around me. And um, that shifted a lot of things for me, for him. And he's in a great place now. I think he's doing really well. He's isolated up there in Boston. I can't hug him. Nobody's hugging him. But he's got his friends and couple roommates. And he's just managing, and he's really busy, and he's still doing yoga, by himself in his little apartment, which for a
That's so
21-year-old
beautiful.
guy that makes me happy.
Very much so. And I think about the journey. I mean, when you first started as a photographer and the journey that you've taken to be where you are today in your perspective, I think about, for me, 20 years of experience in listening, just being in front of whoever the client was. And I saw children, families, adolescents. It's just training that perspective of my ear, of what I could hear underneath what the storyline was. And then coming to a point at which in the journey, I said, you know what, this perspective may be outdated. And for me, it became outdated. And then looking at another way of listening, not just from what's wrong, but what's really strong in this person and what will help them forward. That to me was the turning point. And yeah, I love it. I love that.
I love that too. Yay.
Yay.
Have we told people enough for one day?
For one day, anyway. I have many more things I have to say, but this is great.
Yeah. Yeah, so you'll be one of my recurring guests as well.
I'd be happy to. And
Yay.
I want to reflect back to you before we end about who you are. For me, is that you are someone who sees deeply into the fullness of a human being beyond just the exterior. And I think you capture that. You certainly captured it in me. And I think you have that perspective that's much more. It's like your eyes see one thing, but your soul and your heart sees something else. And I'm so glad we've met, and I feel that deep connection with you, Tanya. And thank you for calling and letting me be one of your guests.
Me too. I like to give you a big hug.
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 When Alex was little and he used to talk to his dad on the phone, he would take the phone like this at the end of the call, and he'd be like hugging the phone.
Okay, I'm doing that too.
Hug.
Cool.
Gosh, it's so nice to talk to you.
Good to talk to you too.
All righty. Till the next time. We'll do it again sometime. I'll let you know where to find these things. Yes. Thank you.
Blessings.
Yes, blessings to you. And I'll get all your info and put like some website links and other ways people can find you or reach out to you. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Tanya.
That's as high tech as it gets around here.
Yeah.
That's all I can do.
From my chair to your chair. Take care.
Exactly. Love
Bye.
you. Bye, Mary.
Love you too. Bye-bye.